All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Mappy Hour Live. I am Sarah Knapp, the founder of Mappy Hour, and I'm really excited to have all of you here, either watching it live or those of you who end up watching the replay. So as we get started, I just wanted to do a few ground rules so we all feel comfortable here. Annalisa will be speaking to you tonight, and if you're on mappyhour.org or on Facebook, there is obviously a place for you to comment, which I encourage you to do. Meet each other, ask questions, which we'll hopefully get to later, but respect each other, treat each other as you would at live events. Definitely trying to create an awesome, supportive community here, and looking for all of us to do it together. So that's kind of my ground rules. That's about it. A few other things. We are going to be doing a few backyard adventure events starting next week. And next week will be New York City and Chicago, and Seattle and Denver will be coming in September. So if you're in one of those cities or you want to learn about the outdoors near those cities, stay tuned for that. That's all going to be at mappyhour.org. Additionally, this is actually part of a summer-long partnership with Sierra Nevada Brewing Company, and they're awesome. They've been supporting Mappy Hour for years and years at this point, and they've helped us find these awesome speakers, get them live with all of you, and also create some really cool stories. So we published an itinerary last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, and we have another interview coming out next week. So there's a lot of cool stuff, and I'll drop the link in the chat, but I encourage everyone to kind of just check it out and see what we're doing. And if you want to watch any of the replays from the previous events, that's where you can find them. So I will share that with everyone. And hopefully, the goal of this whole series is to get us all out on our bikes and camping and hanging out as much as we can, socially distanced this summer. So with that, I'm so excited to introduce Annalisa. And here we go.
Hey guys. Hi Sarah, thank you so much for introducing me, and thank you all for joining. My name is Annalisa, and I'm the co-creator and founder of Miles of Portraits, which is a magazine and film about the people my friend Erik and I meet as we bike around the world. Just want to make sure this presentation is working. Yeah. And I have completed about 15,000 miles of biking just throughout my life. These include tours across the country twice, once when I was a teenager 10 years ago or so, and then another time a few years ago from Virginia to Seattle. And then some other tours that I've done are through Alaska, across the Southwest from Los Angeles to Denver. And then most recently, Erik and I got back from our trip in India, which was thankfully like just before COVID hit. We biked through southern India. And so I'm going to start off with this slide because this is one of my favorite pictures of all time that we've taken on our bike trips. When we have so much stuff on our bikes, and sometimes they weigh about 100 pounds, people come up to us all the time and they ask us what we're doing, and they ask us all these questions, and it really opens ourselves up to a lot of people. And so just a little bit of background behind this picture. We were staying with a warm showers host in southern Alaska, and his name was Patrick. And for those who are unfamiliar, warm showers is basically like the couch surfing for cycling. And so we were staying at Patrick's house, and he lived right next to this empty parking lot. And so Erik and I decided to take advantage of this and kind of fulfill something that we had been thinking about doing for a while, which was just to like sprawl all of our stuff out on this empty ground. And the reason why I love this picture so much is because if you look at all the belongings, it's like, it's a lot of stuff, but it's also not that much. Like, Erik and I are both type 1 diabetics. So if you look at all of this stuff, this is everything we need to not only manage a chronic disease that we have to deal with for 24/7, but it's also all the stuff that we need to film our journey along the way, along these trips, and also ride thousands of miles. So there's something like really liberating about being able to fit everything you need, like your whole life, on your bike. And that's just one of the most freeing feelings that I've ever experienced. And this talk isn't going to go over like every single item that we pack. It's more going to be like an overview of different lessons and important things to remember when you're packing for your bike trip. But if you do want like a more detailed sample packing list, I would recommend checking out Adventure Cycling or 718 Cyclery in Brooklyn. Also has some great sample packing lists. So on to the first slide. I just want to talk a little bit about the difference between bike packing and bike touring, because oftentimes these two words are used kind of interchangeably. I like to use the umbrella term of adventure cycling, but just to give you some technical background, on the left side is an example of bike packing. These are my two friends, Janie and Brandy, who I met in Colorado. And at this moment, they were actually preparing for a race across the Continental Divide from Canada to Mexico. And so what you see on their bikes is everything that they took along with them on the race. It's completely self-supported. And bike packing is typically when you are off the road and you're more like on gravel roads, and you pack yourself to be more aerodynamic. So that means that you do not use panniers because it's not as aerodynamic, and instead you kind of stuff all of your belongings into the frame bag and into a seat post bag, as you can see in that photo. Sometimes you'll put like a sleeping bag on the fork or under the handlebars. And it's just a much more aerodynamic setup and more minimalist. And then if you look on the right, that is Erik in Arizona last year. That's like a typical bike touring setup where you have the 4 panniers and you're on the road, usually with cars, and you're not as concerned as being aerodynamic. You know, you just pile stuff on. What's great about bike touring is that it's not like hiking, like you don't have to carry everything on your back. You can like pile it on if you have to. And then in terms of the bikes that you can bring for these trips, no matter what kind of bike travel you're experiencing, you can use a gravel bike or a road bike. What Erik is riding is a typical touring bike, which is meant to carry like heavy loads. But I always make it a point to just point out that you do not need a $1,000 touring bike to go on a bike tour. You can totally just use like a commuter that you have or a hybrid. The first time that I biked across America, I did it on a $300 hybrid, and I was a little bit behind, but like, you know, I made it work. And then the second time I rode a touring bike, which is, as I said, like meant to carry more of the heavy load and is a little more aerodynamic than a hybrid. But you can really do this with anything as long as doesn't exceed the weight limit. And so I'm just going to go over this kind of like the rooms in a house. We're going to start with a closet. When you're thinking about the clothes that you want to bring, I think that if you're going on a week-long tour or if you're going on a year-long tour, like I've learned that either way, you don't need that much stuff, and you usually end up needing the same amount of belongings. And in terms of clothes, a lot of people want to like pack maybe like 5 shirts and 5 shorts and just pack more than they actually need. And I think the best way to go about it is to instead pack fewer clothes and just make it a habit during the trip to like wash your clothes and just dry it on the back of the bike and just let the wind take care of it. And just make that a habit as you're going along. The kinds of material that you should be looking for, similar to hiking again, is just you want to avoid cotton and go towards like sweat wicking material like polyester or wool. And in terms of bike shorts, the ones that I'm wearing here are Pearl Izumi. Again, back to that first bike trip across the country when I was 16 years old, I made the mistake of wearing running shorts, like literal just running shorts, you know, short shorts. And looking back, like that was kind of a ridiculous thing to choose. But on the second trip, I wore proper bike shorts, and they are much more comfortable, especially if you're like going on a longer haul trip. They prevent you from having butt soreness, and the way that you wear it is that you don't wear underwear, so there's no issues with like anything riding up, and it just avoids like problems like chafing and things like that. So I would definitely recommend bike shorts for the long haul. And then in terms of pedals, again, I started with cage pedals, which is when you basically like insert your sneaker into the pedal, and it's somewhat more aerodynamic because the cage is like holding your toes in place. But it was only a few years ago that I actually started using clip-in pedals, where you have these special shoes where you literally clip your sneaker into the pedal. And so I highly recommend this. You're definitely, the first time that you try it, you're definitely gonna fall the first time. It's like a little bit of a learning curve in terms of how you like take your foot out of the pedal. But once you get a hold of it, you really feel like you're one with the bike, and you feel much more efficient, especially when you're going uphill, and when your foot is going on the up pedal. It just saves a lot of energy, and you actually end up building like a muscle in a very particular part of your foot and your leg that just continues to grow stronger because your foot is positioned in the same exact spot. So there's a lot of upsides to that. The shoes that I wear are Perlizumi X Alp Elevate shoes, which they're great because they're not like the typical cleats where you have to like walk around like a duck because you have to lift your feet up. But these shoes are actually like flush with the floor of the shoe. And so you can actually walk in them and hike in them. And then the last thing I'll point out is that Crocs are like a great thing to bring for bike trips as your like alternative shoe. As much as people make fun of them, they're like very functional and very comfortable. They're not only light, but they don't take up a lot of room because you don't have to put them in your bag. You can just like clip them to the side of the pannier. So definitely recommend Crocs. And then moving on to the kitchen. So just some like basic staples that Erik and I bring on our bike trips. One of the biggest things is chia seeds, which maybe some people wouldn't think about bringing on a bike trip, but for us, we've learned that chia seeds are like very high. They're very nutritional, and they're high in fiber, and they're easy to prepare. As diabetics, we see our blood sugars throughout that, and we see that they're like on a straight line throughout the day. We jokingly call chia seeds the cure because they really help with our numbers. And then other like basic staples to consider are, instead of sliced bread, I would pick up wraps because they aren't prone to like breaking as much. So you have to think about things that will like hold. And then like peanut butter is a classic one just because there's a lot of fat and protein, and it's good to maintain your energy throughout the day. And then like tuna and beans are great for protein. And then I just want to talk about like produce, because I feel like there's this misconception that when you're on these trips, like you can't eat healthfully and you have to eat, like Cliff Bars or dehydrated meals. And it's really, again, like unlike hiking in the way that you actually can eat fruits and vegetables. You just have to make sure that they're like stored properly and not in an airtight container. And then maybe consider getting like harder pieces of produce like carrots or cabbage or edamame that will like hold better. And so, yeah, that's like a great upside to that because you can actually eat healthfully on a bike trip. And then in terms of different like cooking equipment, I definitely go more minimal. I bring what's called an Electricity, I think is the name of the brand, but it's like this very small stove that folds into this small box. And instead of bringing like a plate and a bowl, like I'll just bring a wide bowl so I can use it for both purposes. And then in terms of cutlery, there's a brand called Colin, which you can like strap the cutlery together so you don't lose them. And what you see on the left are just like these basic steel cups that we use for everything, like from chia seeds to cooking, to just even using it like when we walk into a cafe as like a reusable cup. So those like can be used for so many different things. And then one of my favorite items that we bring is what you see on the bottom left, which is a food processor. So this is called the Zillis manual food processor. And this is a luxury item that I have basically realized is much more essential than I thought it would be. On our Southwest trip from Los Angeles to Denver, we actually ended up like not using a stove the entire time. Like we didn't buy propane once, and we cooked while we were at people's houses. And then when we were at the campground, we would eat raw food, and we would use a food processor to just like easily blend so many different things. Like we could make hummus and slaws and pesto and guacamole. And it was just this great like luxury item to have on the trip that became essential. And what's great is that it also like doubles as a bowl itself. So definitely recommend the food processor. It's something that you may have not considered. And so moving on to hydration, I think one of the main things is that you should carry like as many water bottles as you can. I think most bikes can carry, or some, like a lot of touring bikes have room for 3 water bottles on the frame. But I'd encourage you to like find all the capacity, like all the areas that you can actually store water bottles. My friend Steve, he has like 2 in the handlebar and 2 behind the seat and 3 in the frame. So I feel like the more water bottles you have, the more you're encouraged to stay hydrated. There's also what you see on the right is just a water bladder to have just in case you need more capacity. And then some people like to use Camelbacks, which is like a backpack with water in it, and then like a straw. And that also encourages you to drink more water. And then also what you see on the right is the way that we chose to filter water in India is with the Sawyer Mini, which is something that you screw onto a water bottle or a water bladder in this case. And you can either drink from the spout or just pour it directly into another water bottle, just so you have fresh water to drink. And that's been really the best like water filter that we've used so far. All right. And moving on to the bedroom. So moving on to the bedroom. These are the tents that we use on our trips. So I started, like, once again, just to prove that you can do this with anything, I started with a Target tent that costs like maybe $30 or $40. And I think it like started leaking at one point, but it worked, like it did the job. And I really think that you can start with anything you have and then move up as you want to. And so I recently graduated to a tungsten marmot tent, which is a 1-person. And I would like honestly not recommend this tent because it just doesn't have a lot of structural integrity. Like there's only 2 poles and it's just not designed to maintain well in the wind. Like it would just easily flops over. And so I would definitely make sure to look for a tent that has like a good design and maybe more than like 2 poles, because as you can see on the left, like that's Erik's tent, which is a Alps Mountaineering Zephyr 2-person. And it's just built much better, like to hold during a storm. And another thing to remember is just, if you're 1 person, you probably want a 2-person tent. Like if you're 2 people, you probably want a 3-person tent, because you just want that extra space, like for all of your stuff and all your bags, and also just like to stretch out. Because the tent that I have right now, the one on the right, like it feels like a coffin, and I'm actively looking for another one. And then in terms of sleeping bags and sleeping pads, the one that I'm using here is a Sea to Summit Spark, and this is an air mattress. And what's great about it is that it's insulated, so it does really well in the cold. Because it's an air mattress, it like actually feels like a proper mattress, and it's really comfortable. The downside of having an air mattress is that like it can puncture easily. And so the other option is to have like a foam mattress that you would roll up. But the problem is that it's much bulkier and heavier. And then the sleeping bag I'm using is also Sea to Summit. It's called a Flame Ultralight. And it has a little bit of down in it. So it really feels like a comforter. So I felt like I was in bed at home, which was great. And I think something to just consider with all of these three things, with like the tent, the pad, and the sleeping bag, is just how much like money and comfort you're willing to sacrifice for, for making sure that your load is as light as possible. So you have to think about like how much that matters to you. And then just a note that I would definitely recommend, instead of having a flashlight, to invest in a headlamp, just so that you have your hands free while you're at camp. And the one that I recommend is BioLight's 330, which is great because it's like flush to your head instead of maybe looking like a coal miner. So that one just like fits well on your head and is very bright, and can also be like a backup in case you need a light when you're biking. So yeah. And then moving on to cockpit and what's basically like just safety on the road and navigation. One of my biggest things is that I encourage people to invest. I mean, not really invest because they're $2, to get a pool noodle, which you can find for $2 at like the dollar store or a supermarket. What's great about the pool noodle is that what you do is you basically just strap it to your bike. You let the majority of it like hang out on the left side or the right side if you're in England. And cars, it's like magic. Like cars will see you from a mile away, and they will move over to the other lane to give you space. On the roads where there is not a shoulder, it basically like creates a shoulder for you. And yeah, cars just see you. It may seem like really silly, but the point is that people need to see you on the road. And I don't really care if I'm looking ridiculous doing it. And then the second most important thing to do for safety is people have mirrors like on their helmets or on their handlebars. But what I really recommend is a mirror on your sunglasses that you hook to your sunglasses. This is because it really becomes a third eye. Like you get used to checking it every now and then. And when there is a truck behind you, like you can see it coming and you can see how much is moving over. And you can also like see the pool noodle in action and see how much like it's working, and you can see the cars moving over for you where you're like parting the seas. And then a few other things, like there's different options to add, make yourself more reflective on the road. You can get like a safety vest that's just basically just a lot of reflection. Or you can get like a safety triangle. Adventure Cycling sells them on their store. And I think basically the point is that you just want to look as much like a Christmas tree as possible. Like you want people to see you. And that's why we are so colorful and so loud, because it's also for our own safety. And then, I did want to touch on helmets for a moment, because I feel like there's two different points of view. I think a lot of people think that when you wear a helmet, you are much more likely to behave in a more reckless way. But I personally have had the helmet save my life twice. And it should be noted that both times were not on a road with cars. Like both times were on a bike path. The first time, my friend literally ran her bicycle over my head, and I was like completely fine because I was wearing a helmet. And then the second time was like 10 years ago. I was on a bike trip through Quebec, and it was on a gravelly path, and I was going downhill and just completely lost control and got a concussion. And if I wasn't wearing my helmet, like it would have been much worse. So I definitely, I advocate for the helmet. And then in terms of navigation, there's many apps that you can use. But if you are in the US and you are going on an adventure cycling route, I definitely recommend ordering their physical maps, because I mean, it's just great to have an actual map to look at for once. But also, like, these maps will tell you where the bike shops are and where the campgrounds are and like which churches you can sleep at. So they're very like bicycle friendly maps, and they take you on the more like scenic and quiet roads. Let's see. And then fitting it all on the bike. There's many different bike bags out there. I think for the handlebar bag, I definitely recommend Arkel. This is a small company in Quebec who makes these very like robust handlebar bags that are basically like, we call them buckets because they're so big, and you can really just like throw everything in there and it won't break because it's steel mounted, and it's just much stronger because of that. And then in terms of panniers, there's a lot of brands. Ortlieb, the yellow bag that you see on the left, that's Ortlieb. They're known just for being waterproof and very reliable in that sense. The one issue is that there's usually only one way to access the bag, which is from the top. So you have to kind of like guess what you're pulling out. But other than that, it's just really well known for being a strong material. And then Arkel, again, on the right, you see those orange bags. What's great about those is that despite not being able to, like, it's not waterproof, you would have to put a cover on top of it. The one good thing about those bags is that they open up like luggage, so you can really like see everything that's inside. So that's why I like to sometimes mix and match them. And I think one of the main things, I would want you to take away from this is that I think it's important to just think about all of the items that you're bringing. And similar to how like the pool noodle has multiple uses, it's a flotation device and it's also a safety device. I would think about like what items can have multiple uses to you. Like a sports bra is a bathing suit. A pile of clothes can be a pillow. And like in Alaska, our bear canister was a seat. So it's just like what items can have multiple uses and how can you save room in that way? Because when you do, it's like really liberating to be able to do that. Let's see. Yeah, and so that's basically it. I just wanted to end with a story from India. Erik and I were staying at a warm showers in Tamil Nadu, and the father of the host was this very nice man who he didn't really speak that much English, but he wouldn't let us leave without him giving us a banana branch from his farm, because he didn't want us to like spend money on any bananas. And so he strapped this to Erik's bike, and it was just like one of the greatest luxury items that we've ever had, just to be able to like have this many bananas. And it's also great for like, that's how we treat our low blood sugars. And I just find it funny that sometimes like we have to cut back on all this stuff just so that we have room for these like ridiculous luxury items. So yeah, like, thank you guys so much for watching. I think it's just amazing, like how much we can, how little we really need in life and how we can really fit it onto our bikes. And I hope that you were able to take away some tips from this. And I think it's important to just remember that you can do this with anything, and you really don't need that much gear. So yeah, with that, I'm actually just gonna plug one summit that's actually happening that we're hosting with Miles of Portraits, which is called Cycling With. And this is a virtual summit that we will put on September 18th to the 20th that will celebrate different bicyclists who have experienced different barriers to entry. And it kind of celebrates the ways that the bicycle has become this like vehicle for freedom and transformation for all of them. So in order to attend, you have to register, and you can see the link on the screen there. It's milesofportraits.com/cycling-with. And some of the speakers, like this is Jasmine. She biked across America after suffering from severe depression, and it's something that really, like the trip really saved her. She did it with her dog, Fiji, and her violin, which she played along the way. And then there's Team Yaqui, which is in the Pascua Yaqui tribe in Tucson, Arizona. It's this group of cyclists who are, they call themselves Team Yaqui, and they're fighting diabetes 1 mile at a time. And so we're going to talk to one of the members of their team. And then another speaker we're talking to is Leo Rogers, who was recently on the cover of Bicycling Magazine. And he talks about how the bike for him has also been this vehicle for freedom, and it's actually like become his prosthesis, which is amazing. So thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you so much. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
I wish we had an audience that could clap live.
It's weird talking to a wall.
I know. Yeah. All right. You ready for some Q&A?
I'm ready.
I'll start with an easy one. Can you share the camping stove brand that you like? Again.
Oh, yeah. Electicity. I have to spell it for you. It's like, should I type it in the chat?
Yeah, that would be great. Electricity.
1 second.
Okay. It's like which chat? There are chats.
I'm trying to spell it. Sorry. Electricity stove.
Okay.
There we go. Maybe it will come up. Well, maybe it will correct itself. Oh, no, that's a private chat. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I'll share it. All right. Next question. What about gear on your body? Backpack, mechanical issues on your bike? Do you carry tubes, patch kit, pump, levers, lights, all that stuff?
Oh yeah, I didn't really talk about the repair part, but in terms of on my body, I used to wear a safety vest. I did that on the Trans Am a few years ago when I biked across the country, and it really does help, like to have something reflective more on the higher side of your body. And then I don't really like wearing a camelback just because like my back gets sweaty and I don't like to have things on my back. But then, yeah, I feel like that's all that's on my body. I wear a road ID, which is for my diabetes, just in case. And then
you have the cool new fanny packs that are very trendy right now.
Oh yeah, like from Topo Designs. I haven't worn those, but they're good for diabetics if you have I don't have a tube pump, but if you do, it's good for that. Yeah. But I would recommend to definitely get Schwabe Marathon Plus tires because they have. So a few years ago when I was on the bike trip, I used gator skins, and I do not recommend those because I got 8 flats, and then someone recommended. I mean, a lot of people use Schwabe Marathon Plus because there's a lot of rubber, like this thick layer of rubber, and so it really prevents you from getting flats.
Okay.
And then like the basic, you have to carry like a pump and a patched kit and all that stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hi there. Type 1 diabetic here. How do you pack your diabetes supplies?
So I think we each have like an entire pannier. This is why we can't go bike packing, because I don't know how we're going to like fit everything. I mean, I think it is possible. But with the diabetes, it's it's like all in one bag, but then with the insulin, I have to make sure it doesn't go bad because it can't get too hot. So usually I put it with my food, and I put like a frozen water bottle on it if I am going somewhere hot. And then one of the most bulky things that I wear is an Omnipod, which is a type of insulin pump. And that's disposable. So it's like, well, it's not, this is a Dexcom, this is something else, but it's similar to this. And I have to replace it every 3 days. So that's like boxes and boxes of supplies. So on the Trans Am, instead of carrying all of that stuff, I actually like planned it out so that I sent like 10 Omnipods to this gas station and like 10 Omnipods to like this host in Kansas. So I just planned it out so I didn't have to carry as much along the way.
You're like a thru hiker.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a comment. Just wanted to say, hey, from Rhode Island, you are truly incredible.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to guess that was Raina.
It was. All right. Now back to the hard questions. How much clothing do you actually carry for like a 2 to 3 week trip?
So I think it really is the same for if I was going for 2 weeks or if I was going for like 3 months. So I aim to have like maybe 3 shirts, 1 long sleeve, and then it's good to have like layers, like a vest, and then like leggings and 2 bike shorts, and then like 2 pairs of shoes. Yeah,
cool.
But it's good to cut back.
Yeah. This one's from Instagram from before. What is one item you recommend leaving behind?
Oh, so I have a story about that. On the Trans Am, I was carrying 2 towels. One of them was like a full-size towel that you would use at home, and then the other one was a hair towel because I don't know, I'm like a city girl and like very luxurious.
Yeah.
And so my friends and I actually had like kind of like an intervention in this hotel room, and they like saw that I was carrying this, and I was embarrassed about it because, you know, you don't need, it seems like a ridiculous thing to be embarrassed about, but you really don't need 2 towels on a bike trip. Like I ended up downsizing to like just a quick dry towel from REI. That's really what you need. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. What bikes are you and your touring companion currently riding?
So it's a funny coincidence because Erik and I both ride these bikes from REI called Novara Randonnée, and they're the touring bike that REI made. They don't actually make them anymore, actually, and you don't see them that much. So it was just a coincidence that we both happen to have them. Yeah.
And what is one of the most interesting people or interesting places that you have been by bike?
That's a good question. It's a hard question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. There's like so many. Just one.
Yeah.
We have this. I mean, that's what the series is about. It's called Miles of Portraits, and it documents like all the people we meet. So it's hard to like pinpoint one person. Let me just think. There is this woman in Colorado. Her name is Jillian, and she was a Warm Showers host, and she just had such a colorful life. Like she lived on a boat in New Zealand, and she was a teacher, and she worked at a prison, and now she just lives in this small town in Colorado, and she hosts cyclists in exchange for like 15 minutes of farm work. So it's just refreshing to like meet people with such, you know, I don't know, like simple lives.
But also she's been like,
yeah,
yeah, cool. All right. Do you use a light lock?
Oh, well, a what lock?
Light lock, Light.
Light. I don't know what that is. I just use like a regular.
So we need a clarification on that question, please. So we'll move on to the next one. Where are you and Erik touring next?
It's a hard question because of the pandemic. But there was our next trip was supposed to be in Chile, because there's a solar eclipse happening there at the end of December. So I thought it would be cool to bike, have that be the starting point of the trip, and then bike down through Argentina and Chile. Also because my mom was Venezuelan and I really want to practice my Spanish. And I feel at home in South America. So I want that to be next.
That one?
Yeah.
For December 2020. Yeah.
Can't really cancel an eclipse.
Right. Okay, so we got clarification. It's a lightweight lock, like a bike lock. Do you carry one?
I mean, just like a wire, one of those wire locks that are pretty thick, but not a U-lock. Just one of those wire ones. I don't know what they're actually called.
Yeah. Cable lock?
Cable lock, yeah.
All right.
It's interesting. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
It's interesting because I've met people who have crossed the entire country without one lock. But I don't want to take my chances. I feel like when you hit a city, like you need a lock just in case.
Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like a cable lock, like in New York City, would do nothing.
Right. It doesn't even matter.
Yeah. Okay. What is the name of the headlamp that you use?
BioLite is the brand. And they're a really interesting brand. They, I think, I don't know what percentage of their proceeds, but when you buy from them, they support bringing electricity to different parts of the world that don't have it. And so it's called BioLite, and the headlamp is, I think it's just headlamp 330.
It's their only
it's their only headlamp.
Yeah. And BioLite is Brooklyn based, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay. What hard items, computer, smartphone, etc., did you travel with in India?
What smart items did you say?
Hard items, but it sounds like electronics, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So I need, both Erik and I use our phones as our pancreases. Like we're both looping, which is basically like an artificial pancreas system. So like the most important tech is our phone because that controls looping. And then we have something called the Riley link that enables us to have our phones communicate with our insulin pumps. And then with this, which is a Dexcom. And so this sends blood sugar to my phone. So those are like the diabetes supplies. But I feel like in terms of tech, I don't think are there any major things?
Like camera,
laptop? I mean, yeah, of course. I don't know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So we both carry our laptops, which is also kind of ridiculous. But Erik has a drone. That was something that we got funded on Kickstarter a few years ago for one of the first Miles of Portraits trips. Erik is carrying like a full tripod. We both have cameras and laptops. And Erik has a few hard drives because he's doing the filming. So there's a lot of, I don't know how I blanked on that.
Cool. Another diabetes question. What hypo snacks are essential for you? I'm still figuring it out. I'm playing around with gummy bears, glucose, jelly beans.
I found that gummy bears are the only ones that like in the heat don't completely melt, but they still stick to each other. I like to use raisins just because we have to eat so much sugar because every time we have a low blood sugar, we need sugar to bring it up. So we're just like always having to eat sugar as medicine. And so I want to make sure that I can maybe eat some more natural things like dried, like raisins or apricots. So that's what I try to eat. And that seems to bring it up, like a glucose tab, which are like these powdery tabs that I do not eat because they're just very dry.
Not as delicious as raisins or gummy bears.
No. More like medicine.
And is there a specific charger you use for your, your phone? Is it a solar charger? Do you have a, battery pack recommendation, anything like that?
Oh yeah. So BioLite makes solar panels, which I've used before. And And then they also have like juice packs. But now I'm blanking on the name. Oh, actually I have it right here. Just a Belkin battery pack like this, in terms of like a external charger. Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
You ready for another question?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. Which travel or health insurance provider do you prefer?
Health insurance?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming maybe that's like an international travel.
Oh. Well, I used in India, I used American Express. They have a pretty good deal. It was like $90 or $100. I don't really know that much about it, but it seemed to do I mean, I didn't have any emergencies, so
it's great.
Yeah. I mean, we did have one like food poisoning issue, but I didn't need to use it because the hospitals there are actually much cheaper than like, I think it was $10 to go to the hospital and get an IV of fluids.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I got bit by a dog once in Argentina, and I just went to the hospital and they gave me rabies shots for $20, and I was like,
insane.
"That was easy." Yeah,
like without even insurance, nothing. You just walk in.
Yeah. What's wrong? We'll help you. Sure, of course.
And the other thing was that insulin was like $3, and here it's just completely price gouged to like $300 for people who don't have insurance. So it was nice to actually get cheap insulin there. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing. I've been researching bike packing equipment, and this helps so much. So
great. Good to hear.
And we're done with the official questions. So I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add, but that felt very comprehensive to me.
Yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. And for everyone watching, we'll send out an email tomorrow and try to include as many links as I can, because I know there's a lot of info shared tonight. And then this will also just remain on the event page, so you can watch it again if you missed something or want to remember a certain part of it when you're actually packing and planning. So that's it for now. And thank you for sharing with us, and thanks to everyone who came and watched and joined in with questions.
Thanks for having me, Sarah.
Yeah, of course. All right.
Cool.
Bye.